So, welcome back to another episode of the Cart Barn. Last week we talked to an up-and-coming phenom from Alabama, Tyler Watts from Huntsville, and this week we're transitioning a little bit of old school, going back in the days of Buddy Gardner, Montgomery native who played on tour. So we're excited to talk to him. And Chris, you're going to tell us a little bit about Buddy.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting how we've tried to kind of go back and forth between a little bit more current, a little more as old school as you put it, and gosh, Buddy Gardner is such a talent, and people my age and older certainly know who he is. Some of our younger listeners may not, but gosh, you really need to listen to this podcast. Buddy played on the PGA Tour from 1978 to 1993. He finished second like four times. He did lose in a playoff once. He won an event on the Nike Tour, and then a tournament that I was involved with, the Nike Tour at Cherokee Ridge back in 1995. I was helping run that, and he lost in a playoff to Jerry Kelly, who is someone that if you follow golf, you certainly know that name. But a great storyteller. He's got a lot of stories, and played at Auburn. I think it's something that you'll enjoy. So let's get into this week's podcast with Buddy Gardner. Welcome to the Cart Barn podcast. Today we are joined by Buddy Gardner, a former tour player and Alabama resident. Buddy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We're glad
Good to have you here, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
Can't wait to hear some of your stories from the back in the day.
Oh, yeah. I got a few of them.
Well, I'm sure. Just give us a little background. Did you grow up in Montgomery, and what courses did you play down there?
I did. I grew up, my parents lived, and I lived right by the back gate of Bonnie Crest Country Club. And I just walked out of my back gate, and 50 yards, I was on the putting green. Mm-hmm. And so the opportunity was always there. My parents were unbelievable in helping me succeed. I mean, I thought we were billionaires till I found out we weren't, because they took me everywhere.
Yeah. That's great.
Were they accomplished players?
My dad could slice a golf ball around the Alabama Power building and hit himself in the head with it. He was horrible. My mother played it a little bit, and both of my sisters, they could have been pretty good. But boys got in the way of that. And, I'm a little younger than they are. And I just used to come home from school and just walk out the back gate barefooted and go play golf till my mother blew that horn. That meant supper was ready. So I was always sort of close to the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
When do you kind of recall just maybe falling in love with the game? Is there a certain time frame when you really took off for you?
Oh yeah, I loved it when I started. I played baseball, football, basketball, and golf, growing up, and I stopped basketball after 7th grade, football after the 8th grade, and baseball after the 9th grade. The first black guy I ever went to school with was Cedric McIntyre, who was a running back at Auburn when I was there. And I remember he was a legend in Montgomery, and I can remember we had an inter-squad game for our spring game, and man, he was a legend by then. And I was playing free safety. I was on the other team, and he turned that corner, and I said, I'm fixing to blow this guy up. And I hit him as hard as I could. I'll never forget it. And all I felt was his feet kicking my head, churning my head in between his knees. And I got that helmet off. It was on sideways by the time he ran over me. And I unhooked my chin strap and I gave it to my coach. And I said, I'm going to the golf course. Didn't want any more of that.
Who all recruited you coming out of high school to play golf?
Alabama, Texas, Florida, Miami. Excuse me. I can't remember all who else did. I've got letters down there that my mom and dad, God rest their soul, they saved every clipping in the newspaper, and I still got them. I'm having a tough time departing with them, but I'm fixing to. I've just had my son just had our first grandson, so he's fixing to start getting busy. So things are changing a little bit.
What ultimately made you decide on Auburn? Just closer to home, or?
Well, both of my sisters went to Auburn. They both married football players. One of my sisters was a cheerleader there, and the other one would have been, but she messed up her knee. And just the Auburn, I had friends that were, when I was being recruited by Auburn, that played football up there, and it just felt like the right thing to do. I had some second thoughts on it after I'd left Auburn and went to the tour. I think I might would have gone somewhere where the wind blew more, simply because it didn't matter where we were, the wind was blowing, and I learned how to flight my golf ball, and that helped tremendously. But Texas, Oklahoma State, there were a lot of schools that recruited me, and Auburn just felt right. And I said, if you can just get out there and do it to the best of your ability, you're going to be fine. So there's no regret in that. I've made friends when I was in school there that I still talk to, and it just gave me an opportunity. I knew I could play probably my freshman year, and I ended up being number one after my freshman year. During my freshman year, and so I got to play in every tournament, and I got that invaluable experience, which I feel is. The game's changed so much, I can hardly relate to it. Just I'm talking about golf balls and drivers and all these teaching techniques. I would have been in a rubber room if I'd had all that information. I just stand up there and get comfortable and hit it. And that always sort of worked for me. I wasn't a very big guy, but I could hit it a long way. I looked like Scotty Scheffler. I'd swing so hard, I'd be facing the other way after I hit the shot.
Mm-hmm.
What clubs were you playing with back then?
Well, my first set of clubs was this junior set of Sam Snead's, Wilson's, and then for my 12th birthday, my dad bought me some top flight irons, Spalding top flight irons, and I played with those, and they were too much golf club for me at that age, but I grew into them, and I played those, I think, throughout high school, and then once I went to Auburn, McGregor was in Albany, Georgia, and a gentleman by the name of Art Emerson, I'll never forget him, made my first set of clubs to fit me. I loved them. They were the best golf clubs I've ever hit, and I played with those for a few years, and then when I went professional, I ended up playing with Tommy Armour clubs, and it was me and Jim Gallagher Jr. and Bruce Litsky, and there were a couple of girls on that staff, but they were good to me. I still have that set of golf clubs. I refuse to throw them away because I'm thinking one day if I ever play golf again or able to, I think I could hit those clubs.
There you go.
I used to practice so much, and I had a Ben Hogan sand wedge, and that was when Hogan was in Fort Worth, and they had my mold, and I used to wear out 2 of them a year. And then they moved to Richmond, and I'll be dang if the factory didn't catch on fire and it burnt my mold up. I was very upset again about that because it was probably my best club because I did a lot of practice chipping and putting to try to ease up on my body a little bit. But I guess I used those Tommy Armour clubs basically my whole career. They were that 845 was the best perimeter weighted club I'd ever hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went to an 855, which was a lighter head. And I threw them off San Francisco Bay. I'd been doing an outing in San Francisco and I was coming back to Napa. And I pulled over there to Vista Point and threw every one of them in the ocean, except my sand wedge, my driver, my 3-wood, my 1-iron, and my putter. And they were just different, you know. And I mean, all I did was change out wedges and sand wedges every year because that's what I hit the most balls with, is just to practice my short game. Because you're never going to play right every day, and if you got a good short game, and I felt like I could get it up and down from anywhere. So that was sort of my theory.
Who was the coach when you were at Auburn?
Sonny Dragoing. He just passed away 2-3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know anything about golf, but he was like the NCAA wrestling champion. He'd walk around, and when I got inducted into the Auburn Walk of Fame or whatever it's called, I got up and gave a speech, and I said the reason we were so damn good is because Coach gave us 3 golf balls for 3 days and said good luck. And he went crazy. He started waving his hands. No, I didn't. And all that. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
But he was a good man. I have no regrets about going to Auburn.
Who all was on the team with you?
Bob Dumas was on that. He's just retired as president and CEO of Auburn Bank. He's on the board of trustees still. He was the president of that board. And Don Shirey, he's big into Troon golf now, and he's actually retired. Bobby Plains, who is he's a retired federal judge from Tallahassee, really nice guy. And then I had Johnny Coker, who was from Gadsden, and Bob Howarter, who was from New Orleans. And both of those guys are deceased now. But we had a heck of a team. And Barry Holt, he came from Brevard Junior College, and he was on our team. And we had the longest hitting team in North America, except for Bob. Bob never got his feet wet, as I'd say, never missed a fairway. He could just dink it right down the middle. He'd absolutely beat you to death. And I finally got to where I could beat him. And but it was a challenge every day. We'd have these 10-round qualifyings, and I can remember to go to Mexico one year. I believe it was my sophomore year, maybe. I was in Miami playing in the Dixie Amateur and the Florida International Floorball. And I missed the qualifying, and it was freezing. And Coach said, I'm just not going to take you to Mexico. And I said, why? I said, I'll go play 10 rounds in 5 days, 6 days. And I went out there and I shot like 54 under par for 10 rounds, and it never got above 40 degrees. And the guy on our team, Ross Johnson, played him with me every day. And uh, anyway, I didn't have to qualify anymore after that.
Should have taken Ross to Mexico just for being out there in under 40-degree weather with you every day.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you what. We went down there and I drank bottled water. I think they had it then, and I wouldn't eat a salad. I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches the whole time I was there. I was so scared I was going to get sick, but I didn't. And I finished second in that tournament as well. It was a lot of near misses for me throughout my career in Auburn. I felt like I played really good. And, I should have won a lot more. It's just circumstances. Chip Beck beat me in the All-American at Houston my junior year by a couple shots. And then David Ishii, who played for Houston, he was from Hawaii. And he held a 90-footer on the last hole time my senior year. Coach and the rest of the team went to the airport and got on a plane and went back to Montgomery, and I had to stay there. And he beat me in a playoff. So anyway, it was quite an adventure. I would take nothing from my days at Auburn. Nothing.
When did you kind of decide, hey, I can get out on tour and make a living?
Oh, I knew that when I was about 13. That was what I was going to do. I mean, fortunately, I made it through. I went to Europe after the NCAA at Colgate, New York, 1977. And we didn't qualify as a team, but I went up there and I was leading the tournament with 9 holes to go and made a triple on number 10. And I ended up finishing 5th. But I got on an airplane and flew from Ithaca, New York, Prestwick Airport in Troon. And I played the European Tour that summer and had a couple of okay finishes, maybe a couple of top 5s out of 7 tournaments. But boy, I was ready to come home. I didn't particularly care for the food. And, here I am, 20 years old, 21. I was ready to get home, and I came home, and at that particular time, there were like 3 stages of qualified. Fine. I went through down there in Largo, Florida. I got in a playoff. I played terrible, and I got in a playoff, and I made a 50-footer on the first hole playoff and got the only spot left for I believe it was locals. And then I cannot remember where I went to regionals, but then the finals was at Pinehurst, number 4. And I finished 3rd in that. And I was so nervous, it was unbelievable. But I made it. And then I didn't really, I didn't do well the first year, and I had to go back through the qualifying school. And I only had to go to the finals for some reason. I didn't make but about $8,000 or $10,000. I can't remember. But we went to a place in Huntsville, Texas. That's where they used to have the federal prison. And we played a course named Waterwood National. And Pete Dye did it. And that was when the railroad ties were in. They were everywhere. And I'll never forget, it was 4 rounds. I shot 37 8 times. So I shot 474s, and I made about a 4-footer that broke about 2 feet from left to right going downhill on the last hole to make it on the number. And then I had a good year. 79, I think I finished second a couple of times in Tucson and then in Napa. And I played in the team championship that year with Roger Maltby. And I was going out for a pass, man, and somebody threw me a pass out there on the beach at the Polynesian Village. And I fell over a lounge chair and tore all the ligaments in my left wrist. So 1980 was terrible. And then I had to go back to the school again. And my This was the year that the all exempt tour was going to start, the 125. And I made it. And we played at the TPC, and that was before they cleaned it up. It was really, really hard. And if you hit the ball out of the tree line and you got in those dadgum palmetto bushes, you could never find your ball. Anyway, it was hard. And I played with Mac O'Grady the last round. He had been to the school for 18 times, I believe it was, maybe 15. And Gary McCord. I finished third. Donnie Hammond was low. And we're walking up to the green, me and McCord. I had hit it so far right on 18. I wasn't going in that water, but I knew I could make a 5 or 6 from the right where I couldn't in that lake. And we looked back there in the fairway, and Mac was laying flat on his back, looking up at the sky, that he had finally made it. And he was a beautiful swinger of the golf club, sort of a different guy. I got along with him fine. That was when all that started. And I think I made it through. I think I sort of started backing off the tour in like 1996. It was the year Tiger came out. I knew for sure I wasn't beating him.
Not many other people.
Yeah. One morning I was warming up in LA and at Riviera, and there's a skinny kid hitting balls beside me, and I'm sort of looking at him and said, "Man, he's knocking that ball over that fence." And it was Tiger. He was 15 years old. He didn't make the cut, but I knew then his ball sort of made that different sound.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to play golf out there. It's, not many people get to live out their dreams. I did.
Yeah.
And I have no regrets. My body's paying for it. I hadn't played golf in like 3 years. My shoulders messed up. My neck's messed up. My elbows destroyed. And I can't even hold on to a golf club without it hurting. So I haven't played much in the last 3 years. As a matter of fact, none. And, I got to play in the Masters. I played the year Nicklaus won last time. And it was a great experience. And I got to travel to Hawaii. I've just made friends all over the country, in California, Hawaii, just everywhere. Been just unbelievable. Absolutely.
Well, the tournaments have changed a lot since then. What was one or two of your most favorite tournaments that you played in back then, buddy?
I loved Riviera. I loved that golf course. Didn't have a drop of water on it, and it just fit my eye. That was probably my favorite course to play. And then, go up Pebble Beach and play up there, and that was when we played at Cypress Point, Pebble Beach, and Spyglass. And I'll never forget, for the qualifier up there, the qualifier was at Spyglass. And the first hole of Spyglass, 600 yards long, downhill, come out of the forest and come right out toward the ocean. And man, I had a driver in 3-wood about 5 feet from the hole. And I said, "Man, this is going to be easy." Again, as well, I didn't make that qualifying that Monday. I shot 80. And it was blowing and cold and rainy. But like I said, I had an opportunity of a lifetime. I love playing in LA. I just like Los Angeles at the time. I don't think I'd go back right now, but at the time it was a pretty cool place, and got to meet a ton of interesting people.
Well, tell us about some of them. I know that there was one story about staying at someone's house that I
Oh
hear
yeah, we played. I don't know who set this golf game up, but I played Bel Air. Jim Mahoney, he was an agent for all the movie people, and played with Sean Connery and Joe Hamilton, who became one of my dear friends. He was married to Carol Burnett. I swear I cannot remember how that all occurred, but I ended up playing with Joe in the 18 or the Crosby, and so we went home from Bel Air, and he said, "Come on, get my car." And I had a rental car or something, and he pulled up in a convertible Rolls Royce, and I really didn't know what he did. I knew he was fine. I knew he was a producer. I didn't know anything, so we jump in his car in that convertible Rolls Royce, and we go out on Sunset. We go up a couple streets to Alpine Drive. I'll never forget it. And we turned up there, and we got to the top of the hill, and there was a gate that was 40 feet high, and it had a police car on the other side of it. And I said, "What in the world is going on here?" And he says, "Well, before you pass out," he says, "I'm married to Carol Burnett." And I said, "No big deal. Don't bother me." But we drove up in there and got out. Carol and Carrie were playing basketball out on the driveway, and I got out and introduced myself, and we went inside Joe's house. It was Joe and Carol's house. It was 52,000 square feet, and and they had a panoramic view of LA at their little bar. And so I sat down there, and we said, he said, Carol said, "Would you like a beer?" And I said, "Sure." And she brought it to me in one of those flutes. Uh, it's good size. And I was just trying to act right. You know, Here I am, Montgomery, Alabama, I'm sitting next to one of the famous people in Hollywood history. So we talked and we talked, and I was running my mouth. I was getting comfortable. And I reached over there to grab that beer, and I pulled it over right in my lap. And I mean, it soaked me. And she said, "My God, son," I'll never forget it. She says, "Take this robe right here. Give me your clothes. I'll put them in the washer. Gigi will get them out." And she said, "And by the way, when you get through here," I was staying right down the street at the Beverly Hills Comstock, which is right across the street from Los Angeles Country Club. And she said, "You go get your clothes, and you're staying with us." And stayed out in the guest house. And anyway, long and short, I mean, we took all our stuff, took all my stuff out there, and it didn't fold back. It was just a guest house. That was perfect for me. But we finished dinner the first night, and man, I'm walking back to my guest house back there, and some guy stepped out of the doghouse. They had, of course, round the clock security. I didn't know it. And I went, "God almighty, man, you scared me to death." And he says, "I'm security here, sir. I'm sorry." And I went back in there, and I said, "Joe, somebody's in the doghouse out there." And I said, "He about scared me to death." Anyway, we had a friendship for years and years, and they had a place in Hawaii. I went to Hawaii with them one year, uh, and I had Tim Conway and Harvey Korman and Carol and Joe in their 8-bedroom condominium, and they were filming whales mating out there. And Tim said, "Carol, what are they doing?" And Carol said, "Tim, just shut up. Just shut up." And Harvey Korman was over there rolling on the floor. Well, we played in Maui, and at the time, Maui just had one golf course, and it was called Plantation. And then Ben Crenshaw built the other one that they play now. And I'll never forget, we flew from Honolulu, and we landed on in a sugarcane field right by the plantation course. Maui it was all undeveloped. They didn't have any big airports or anything like that, but we landed in a dead-gum sugar cane field. I was petrified. But it turned out to be a true friendship. He came to Montgomery and played in George Lindsay's tournament. And unfortunately, he passed away probably 5 years after I met him. But I had some other friends that lived in Irvine, California. And the year that I didn't make the qualifying for the big Crosby, I went down there and played with them in the little Crosby. Well, I played with a guy and his wife. His name was Bob Gray, and his wife's name was Marie. And I'll never forget that night. He said, "Would you like to go to dinner?" And I thought, I just soon, stay at home. And I said, "No, I'm going to go." And they pulled up, and they owned St. John's Knits. It's a high fashion women's clothes. Anyway, he was SJK1 in his roles, and she was SJK2 in her roles. And I thought, it's going to be interesting. And so we went to the Big Canyon Country Club. John Wayne lived there. And I had dinner with the guy that drew the first Mickey Mouse and his wife. I thought, man, unbelievable. But I could go on and on and on about people. I met a guy, his name is Jim Sharp. He just retired from Fox Television. When I met him, his job was to get the cars that Stephen Cannell that they wrecked on the Mr. T and Dukes of Hazzard. And he ended up being president of Fox Television. And we still talk to this day. Wonderful man. I met a guy that lived next door to Ronald Reagan up there at Bel Air. I did an outing for RJR Nabisco in Palm Springs. And the guy that was the PR man for RJR, he says, "This guy's the meanest, toughest, crusty old SOB you ever met in your life." And man, we finished 9 holes. And I walked inside and I said, "Look, give me something tough." I said, "He's already asked me to stay with him during the tournament. And he lives next door to Ronald Reagan." And anyway, he's passed now. I met so many people, I can't even tell you. And 99% of them were just hearts of gold. I mean, Mr. and Miss Gray were like my second parents. And they made all my clothes. That's why I have such an affection for LA, is I have so many memories that I used to fly out there. New Year's Eve, I wouldn't come back home till February. I just played every week. There was never a dull moment.
What was the travel like for you back then? Somewhat different than what it's like now, I assume.
Oh my Lord. I hadn't been on a commercial airliner. Well, I did get on one. I had a contract with RJR Nabisco, and I did about 30 days a year, and they'd pick me up in their Gulfstream 4, and I'd fly from wherever I was to wherever they wanted me to go, and then they'd fly me back to the next tournament. But air travel hadn't gotten nothing like it is now. I mean, that's what basically drove me to come home, to say I've just had enough. It was I was playing too much. My body was hurting. I think I was 42, 43 years old. I don't know, but the air travel was easy. If I could have if the purses were big enough, and I could have made enough money to where I could have played, got home on Sunday night, and leave on Tuesday morning, I wouldn't still be playing now at almost 69 years old, but I would have probably played longer.
Were you playing every week, just early on to try and keep your card?
I couldn't stand it. When we started playing for $1 million tournaments, I mean, it just killed me to stay at home. And I knew could be out there. I played too much. I think I played in the U.S. Open at Inverness. It might have been the PGA. It was the PGA because Bob Tway chipped in out of that bunker on the last hole, beat Greg Norman by a shot. And I defy you to go get in that bunker and never hit that shot again. It was unbelievable. But I did play too much. But I loved competing. I really did. And I love people. I just, like I said, I played too much. And Hubert told me, God rest his soul, he said, you got to walk away from this game every now and then. And I said, well, hard for old buddy to walk away when we're paying 180,000 first place every week. Now that's almost last place.
You guys have some good money games like on Wednesdays ahead of the tour event?
I dipped my hand into one of those. And Dave Eichelberger was one of my dear friends because we love to eat Mexican food. We love to eat early. And we love to sit at the bar and have a beer and then go home. Called me. I think he had just gotten in. He called me. We were in San Diego, and I was staying at La Costa at Mr. and Miss Gray's house. And he called me Junior. And he said, Junior, I got a game for us tomorrow. And I said, who are we playing? And he said, Fat Boy, which is Raymond Floyd, and Colbert. And they were really good. And I'm telling you what, I think I made like 7 birdies and an eagle. And we lost $800. And I pulled the money out, threw it down on the green, and I looked at Berger and I said, don't you ever call me again. And Raymond and Colbert were about to die laughing. Raymond was my favorite guy to play with. He was a tough nut boy. He was extremely nice. I just liked the way he carried himself. He was a good guy, but mean. I mean, not mean to me, but he was just tough.
Yeah.
You get that look. He'd get that look in his eye, and I thought, oh Lord.
Well, that's a good story.
Yeah. I told Berger, I said, don't you ever call me again. I said, I may beat you in the head with this putter going off his green. I said, that's more money than I spent in a month. And I mean, I made like 7 birdies and an eagle, and we got killed. He didn't help me a hole either, by the way. I'll let him have it for that. But we had I didn't really play in very many money games. I did that day, and that sort of taught me a lesson. I like to get out there early or either late Tuesday afternoon and play. And then if I wasn't in the Pro-Am on Wednesday, I'd get up Wednesday and play 9 holes before the Pro-Am and then go chip and putt for an hour and a half. And then I'd go home and try to rest just to get ready to, play the golf tournament. It was, physically taxing as well as mentally. But that was sort of my routine. And then I had to do all those days with Nabisco, which was just great. It was me, Fuzzy, Crenshaw, and they got all the money, and I did all the work. They had little old bitty logos on their golf bag, and they paid them a lot of money. But I mean, they were good to me. They took me all over the place. They carried me around in their jet.
You got any Fuzzy Zoeller stories?
Yeah. We used to stay when we played outside Boston, and Fuzzy, he met a guy that they were going to shoot a film on Fuzzy, but he loved to hunt. And we went to this pheasant reserve up in, I believe it was Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And we stayed there about 10 years. And we had this guy by the name of Everett Skian and Paul Kekkonen. And Paul Kekkonen, he lived in his bait shop with his dog. And he taught Ted Williams how to fly fish.
Nice.
You could watch him out there, and we'd be out there. And Fuzzy got a helicopter to pick us up to and from the golf course. They didn't come to get me; they came to get him. And we used to have this cook, and we'd cook those pheasants. And man, the guy that owned the game reserve, his dad was the head culinary chef at the University of Rhode Island. They had corn on the cob, And I'm telling you what, Paul Kekkonen, he was an older gentleman. He was a great guy, great guy. And Everett was an author. And we'd eat and we'd look up, and you couldn't even see Paul's eyes. He had that corn all over him. We ate it every day, every meal. I'd go to bed, but Fuzzy would stay up with him. And phone rang about 3 o'clock one morning, and it was Everett and Paul, and the police stopped going back into Worcester. And it was Everett on the phone. He says, "Buddy, put Fuzzy on the phone." He says, "They got me in jail." And he had run over something and knocked all the wheels off his car. He going down the road. And I said, "You can go to hell. I'm going to bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning." And he said, "Oh, God, please don't hang up. They're going to keep us in here forever." So Fuzzy went down there and got him out of jail. And he had to play early the next morning. And, he could function with no sleep. I mean, I couldn't do that. And, but we had so much fun up there. And Paul and Everett, they couldn't believe that I was as good a shot as I was. And Fuzzy was a dadgum good shot too, but they thought I was some city boy. They didn't know nothing about me. They just knew Fuzzy. We used to go up there and shoot. That was my favorite week of the year because whoever played early drove in. And if we were on opposite sides, the guy that played, one of us got to use the helicopter. We were never in the same side of the draw. That was the all-time good place. And we stayed, Fuzzy had something to do like with Ford's Colony in Williamsburg, and we'd stay there. Me and Fuzzy and Hubert, they beat to a different drummer than Buddy. I mean, I couldn't run with them. I mean, it was just stuff like that the public would never know. Fuzzy's a dear friend of mine. He just lost his wife about a year or two ago, and she was great. Just things like that. I got millions of those stories.
Well, you've mentioned Hubert a few times, and he's obviously an Alabamian. You got a
Yes.
Hubert story you want to share with us?
Well, we left Palm Springs, and Mr. Gray had a jet. He also had a King Air. We flew out of Bermuda Dunes Airport, and he flew us over to Scottsdale. That was when we played at the TPC, and we stayed at Scottsdale Princess. And we got there, and we checked in the hotel, and they said, I said, "I'm going to bed, man. I'm about to die. I'm so tired." Hubert and Fuzzy went out, and they got overserved. And I can't remember. I was coming back down to the lobby like about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I pushed the elevator button, and the door opened, and Fuzzy was riding Hubert like a cowboy. Hubert's on his all fours. He's looking up. He talked real fast. I said, "Oh my God, let me out of here, please." Please. But I got paired with Hubert and Fuzzy at Greensboro one year when we played at Forest Oaks, and it was unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. And then I got paired with both of them quite a few times, and when we played at right outside Boston, I got paired with him, and the teeth hole there was so tight. He played wide open all day, and then got 17th hole. So I hit a 1 iron down there, and Fuzzy get a driver or something. Anyway, he hit it in about 40 feet from above the hole, putted it down there, and he left it 4 feet short. And I swear he hit this ball so hard from 4 feet, it went in, it hit the back of the hole and jumped up. And I said, "Oh my God, it's going in the lake." And it went in the hole. And some guy in the gallery, they all had that New England accent. And he said, "Fuzzy, why did you hit that ball so hard?" He says, "Man, if your wife had as much money as mine did, it wouldn't matter if it went in the hole or not." I lost it. But I've had all kinds of stories like that. Just unbelievable.
When you reflect back on your career, any regrets at all?
that I didn't win. I won a Nike Tour event in Auburn in Panama City. I should have won about 3 or 4 tournaments. And Jay Haas made a 100-footer on the last hole at Houston to tie me. I two-putted from 100 feet, though. I had a chance to win the Canadian Open one year and a couple other events. I, I think, and you'd probably have to look this up, I think I had 499 starts on the tour. And I think I made like 252 cuts. That's not bad. I didn't win any tournaments. I should have won a couple. But that'd be the only thing I regretted. You never want to wish your life away, but now it's just gotten too much. I didn't even have a cell phone till I was 40 years old. And, the way this world is today, every one of us would have probably been in jail. With this social media stuff, and you say something to somebody and you don't know who you're talking to, so I don't miss all that. So that's sort of about my story. I don't regret anything. I do wish I'd have won a tournament, but I'm a life member of the PGA Tour, which, I can't play golf anymore. I can't go play these wonderful golf courses they have, and I miss it. I miss it, and I wouldn't care if I could just swing and it not feel like that my neck and my shoulder and my elbow are going to completely dislocate from my body.
Mm.
I wouldn't mind playing, but that's just the way it is. I'll be 69 years old in about a month, and I would still like to just go out there and, like I said, I don't have to shoot 68 anymore. But I would like to play with a little group at the club. And
What course was that, buddy, that you've been?
Birmingham Country Club.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a member there.
Yeah.
And honored to be there too. But it drives me crazy when I drive out there, and I'll go eat lunch out there a couple times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody getting ready to go play golf, and I get back in my car and go home.
Yeah.
So it's pretty frustrating. I've been very active all my life. I've been retired for 2 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't do much anything.
Well, you've got your grandson now, right?
Yeah, he's
That
4
will
months old. He's Cooper Webb Gardner, and he's 4 months old. And he's already rolling over. And I tell my son Peyton, I said, "Golly, you're gonna have the time of your life watching him play baseball and watching him play golf." And I hope I'm still here to see it. I used to have so much fun with my son watching him play baseball. He's a very good baseball player, and could have been a great golfer, but he figured out that baseball was going to be a lot easier than golf was. And I have a daughter here, and she tried to play golf, and she couldn't figure out why she couldn't hit it like me. And I said, "Heck, I've been doing it since I was 5 years old."
Mm-hmm. That's funny. That's a good story. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an excellent time, and gosh, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we'd love to have you back on again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Just call me.
Well, Greg, that was a great interview with Buddy Gardner. He certainly has some stories, and there's a whole lot more that we weren't able to put on here, but we have talked to him, and he's interested in coming back. So hopefully we'll have Buddy on again soon and finish telling some of these stories from playing golf back on the tour back in the late 70s and early 80s.
I think what's really interesting, Chris, about some of these guys is the stories they allude to that they can't tell on this podcast.
Yeah.
It would be great to sit down with them at some length and get some of the maybe anonymous names and let them tell those stories. But yeah, we appreciate Buddy taking time to come on and give us a little insight to life on tour back in the day and his time at Auburn. So we thank him for being on this week, and looking forward to next week's episode when we're going to have another great guest. And we really have some good ones lined up for the next few weeks. So hope everybody's enjoying these podcasts, and we'll keep listening.